It's a new year, but it's ultimately the same old story for the Pittsburgh Steelers. You can beat some really good teams, but once or twice a year, you'll go on the road and face a vastly inferior team and find a way to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. That has been the Pittsburgh Steelers' MO for many years behind Big Ben and Mike Tomlin, and it continued this past Sunday against the Chicago Bears. And when you take a look at how this game played out, early on, the Bears got their first big break. You had that Eli Rogers muffed punt, which eventually led to a 3-yard Jordan Howard touchdown run. Then the Steelers come back the next series after they gave up that touchdown off of the muff punt, and then Bryce Callahan forces a fumble on Big Ben, which is recovered by Akeem Hicks. And even though Connor Barth missed the 47-yard field goal, and the score was still 7-0 at the end of the first quarter, the Steelers in that first quarter, their drives or quasi-drives, when you talk about the muff punt, they ended as such: a 3-and-out, a fumbled punt, a fumble by Big Ben, and another 3-and-out. And I don't care who it is or who you're playing in the National Football League, especially when you're playing a team in their place. You have to pounce early. You have to strike early. And the longer you let them hang around, the longer you allow them to think that they have a chance, they are going to pounce. And that's largely what happened from the jump here in this game. The Chicago Bears played with a higher energy level. They seemed like they were more well prepared. They were better disciplined for the most part, except Marcus Cooper. But the Bears look like the better team on the field, and it's crazy how this works. Last week in Tampa Bay, they got demolished by the Buccaneers. Week 1, though, they looked like, for the most part, the better team on the field against the Atlanta Falcons for the vast majority of that game. And that's really how it played out here. And then you look at right afterwards, you get into the second quarter, and, the Steelers go out. They have a 13-play, 77-yard drive, and it evens up the score. So you're like, uh-oh, here come the Steelers. The Bears got one on them early. The missed field goal hurts. Now they've tied it up. What's going to happen here? But then the Bears came right back and responded with a 9-play, 75-yard drive that ultimately was capped off by a 2-yard Adam Shaheen touchdown catch. Welcome to the NFL, kid. Hopefully there's a lot more of those in Adam Shaheen's future, the second-round pick from Ashland. But ultimately, at that point in time, the Bears are up 14-7, and you're feeling good about the team's chances, even though there's that bit of a worry that eventually the Steelers are going to snap out of it, they're going to wake up, and they're going to put this team away, going away in the second half. But it didn't happen. You get to the end of the first half, the Steelers get in field goal position, and then one of the craziest plays I've seen in a very, very long time, the Bears blocked the field goal. I believe it was Sherrick McManus that blocked the field goal. Then Marcus Cooper recovers it, is screaming down the left sidelines, and you're like, oh my God, they're about to go up 21-7 on the Steelers at Soldier Field, heading into the half, getting the ball first in the second half. This team is going to win this damn game. And then ultimately, Marcus Cooper decides he wants to pull a Deshaun Jackson type of crap, slow down before he gets to the goal line to where he gets the ball knocked out from behind, to where ultimately the punter gets an illegal bat of the ball, knocks it out of bounds, so they get called for a penalty for that. It's considered a change of possession. The Bears get the ball at the 1-yard line, then you get a penalty, and then they ultimately kick a field goal. So all this craziness and all this madness on one of the weirdest, dumbest plays I've ever seen in Chicago Bears history. I don't know if it's the dumbest or not yet, because that Jared Boykin fumble recovery touchdown from a few years ago, where guys just stopped playing even though there was never a whistle, to me was every bit as ridiculous, especially considering what was on the line in that Week 17 game. Now you're talking about a Bears team, even with that screw-up, they still managed to get 3 points out of that when they deserved nothing. And they're up 17-7 at the half. And you're thinking to yourself, my God, the Bears might have a chance to win it. But deep down, there's that worry that, yeah, they needed that touchdown, because that could have been a backbreaker at home, go up 2 touchdowns even against a Steelers team with the firepower they have on the offensive side of the ball, and to only come away with 3 points. At least you got the 3, but that's only a 10-point deficit. You feel like they're in trouble. But they were okay, and then you got that questionable Jordan Howard fumble call, which the Steelers recovered and ultimately led to a Le'Veon Bell 1-yard touchdown run. Then Mike Glennon threw a horrible pass. J.J. Wilcox made a great play on the ball, and he intercepted it, and it ultimately led to a game-tying field goal. The Bears and Steelers weren't able to score anymore, so now you get into overtime, and it's 17-17. And once you get to overtime, anything can happen. And even at that point, I'm still watching thinking, the Bears have been a game team. They've put up a good fight, but ultimately is overtime where it's going to fall apart. It didn't. The Bears get the ball, a short Jordan Howard run, and then bam, there's Tariq Cohen streaking down the right sideline, who's about an inch away from staying in bounds and ending the game right there, right then. And then to follow that up with 18-yard run by Jordan Howard, and then ultimately the game winner, the 19-yard touchdown run up the left sideline by Jordan Howard. And lo and behold, what do you know? A Chicago Bears team that just got embarrassed last week by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. A Chicago Bears team with absolutely nothing at wide receiver. A Chicago Bears team scared of their quarterback found a way to beat one of the very best teams in the AFC at home in the Pittsburgh Steelers in overtime. Mike Glennon beat Big Ben in a game, throwing for about 100 yards. It's incredible. But that's why they play the game. And when you look at this game, there's going to be some good the Bears obviously are going to take out of it. Hey, you got off the schneid. Week 3, that tough opening 4-game stretch of games. You talk about Atlanta, Tampa Bay, Pittsburgh, and then got a quick turnaround Thursday night to the game in Lambeau against the Packers. You're staring down a very real possibility of going 0-4 to start the season, and the Bears have been competitive in 2 of the 3 games and found a way to win one of them against a quality opponent. At least, if anything else, it's a good harbinger for things to come to say this team is playing well at home. They didn't play well on the road in week 2, but they've played well at home in their first 2 games, and that's a start. That's a start of trying to establish an identity, and that's something good. You obviously got to look at Jordan Howard playing through the AC joint sprain, and obviously his shoulder was bothering him as the game went along. You could even see he was trying to avoid using his arm. He was trying to avoid contact, and still to be able to tough out that game the way he did. And after the first 2 games where he kind of struggled a little bit, he wasn't the same Jordan Howard we saw in 2016, to pull out against a Pittsburgh Steelers defense that typically is good against the run. 23 carries for 138 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then for Bears fans know what I'm talking about, Jordan Howard actually caught 5 balls for 26 yards. 5 receptions for Brick Hands Howard. I mean, that was a clutch, big-time marquee star type of performance. Obviously, Tariq Cohen again. Some of the things he could do from an explosive nature offensively, out of the backfield, out of the slot. He brings a well-needed and surprising element to this Bears offense that we didn't, I don't think, anticipated getting out of him in 2017. But then I also look at the defensive side of the ball. You're talking about a team with a Hall of Fame quarterback that's won 2 Super Bowls in Big Ben, arguably the best wide receiver in the National Football League in Antonio Brown, and arguably the best all-around running back in the National Football League in Le'Veon Bell. And the Bears got 3 sacks and allowed only 17 points. And you could say, well, Antonio Brown had a big day, and that is mostly true from a fantasy standpoint. You didn't feel like he truly overpowered the team and took over the game. And the Bears did a good job of keeping most everybody else out of the action. And Le'Veon Bell, again, for this 3rd straight game, wasn't really able to get going. Part of it, I think, is what the Steelers are doing offensively, but some of it is just Le'Veon Bell hasn't come to play yet this season. And the Steelers need to get more out of him. But for the Bears to go home or not doesn't matter. To sit there and play pretty well defensively against a high-powered Atlanta offense in week 1 to kick off the season. Then 2 weeks later, after that shellacking in Tampa, to come back and respond in the way that they did, I think is a reflection of the players on that defensive side of the ball, even with some of the lack of talent they have in certain places even still, and a reflection of the defensive coordinator Vic Fangio, and to a lesser extent head coach John Fox, and their ability to get the most out of the defensive side. Now, let's go to the bad. The Bears wide receivers. A total of 1 catch for 9 yards, and that was from Deontay Thompson. You are not going to win very many football games in the National Football League when your wide receivers combine for one catch for 9 yards. That's terrible. I don't care how you spin it. The officiating had its moments where it was less than stellar. The Howard fumble I thought was a bad call, and replay not overturning it I thought was questionable. You had a couple of missed holding calls in overtime. The one on the Cohen run in particular I thought was pretty egregious. I didn't see many people talking about the one on the Jordan run. That was also pretty egregious, and I can't believe that didn't get called. So it wasn't a banner day for officiating in terms of some big calls that were made or were not made in key spots that could have potentially turned the game, and I think in some ways ultimately did turn the game. And then you look at Mike Glennon. 15 of 22 for 101 yards, a touchdown and an interception. He could have had a couple of others. He's just not very good. And how long can this Bears team continue to try in such a way to hide their quarterback? If you're in a position where you feel like you have to hide your quarterback, then ultimately why is that guy starting for you? And as I look more and more at Glennon, I fully believe it goes beyond conservative with their offensive plan with John Fox and offensive coordinator Dowell Loggins. It is literally they are scared and petrified of what Mike Glennon might do to the team to sink them, to sabotage them if they take some of the reins off. And again, I come to this. If you fear that, why is he starting? And then we get to the ugly. Marcus Cooper, what the fuck were you thinking? He basically cost the Bears 4 points by being a knucklehead. I've never understood the desire to slow down 10 to 15 yards from the goal line when you haven't scored yet. You want to celebrate? I don't care. Put the frickin' football between your nuts and sit there and fucking pretend like you're getting a blowjob from the crowd for all the hell I care. But get in that damn end zone, and Marcus Cooper should be really freaking lucky that this Bears team found a way to hold on and win, even though they didn't score anything in the second half, even though they played scared of their quarterback. I mean, this was just terrible. One of the craziest things I've seen in a long time. Where is your freaking head at? That's just ridiculous. And then I look at the Steelers. This is another year and another time where this team goes on the road with a head coach who's won a Super Bowl and had coached in another, a quarterback that has played in 3 Super Bowls, won 2 of them, arguably the best wide receiver in football in Antonio Brown, arguably the best running back in the National Football League in Le'Veon Bell, and they lay another turd. They lay another egg. There is absolutely no excuse and no real football rationale as to why the Pittsburgh Steelers lost this game on Sunday. But they ultimately were outplayed pretty much from beginning to end, and they looked relatively disinterested outside of, frankly, Antonio Brown and a couple of other guys. But I can't really say the same thing about Big Ben and Le'Veon Bell. It speaks to a lack of leadership, a lack of focus and consistency, and it also is evident as to why the Pittsburgh Steelers are who they are, and they're not a team that has more Super Bowl trophies because of bullshit like this. It is the losses like these that come back to bite a team in the ass at the end of the season when you start thinking about playoff seeding and first-round byes and home field advantage, and ultimately the Steelers even going to an away game, going to a place like Soldier Field. You're talking about a Bears team that just got demolished by the Buccaneers this past Sunday. How the hell are you going in there and letting them get up on you early and letting them think they have a chance to beat you and then get to overtime after you've tied it up and then let them just basically march right down the field on you? Worst of all, knowing they can't throw, knowing they're not going to throw, that this is the epitome of a one-dimensional team, that any throw that they do throw is to a back or a tight end within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, and you still lose. It speaks to so many things about that Steelers team right now, up to and including, frankly, the stupidity of the coaching staff. It's terrible. That's just ugly and just unacceptable if you're a Steelers fan. And now let me bring it home with the 2-minute drill. For the Chicago Bears, yes, this was a great win. It really was. You're talking about a team that could be the 1, 2, or 3 seed in the AFC come playoff time, a threat to go to the Super Bowl. They come to your place a week after you got shellacked by the Buccaneers, and you played well again at home, and this time you found a way to make enough plays to beat this team. It's crazy. And congrats to the Bears. They deserve this win because they were the better team on Sunday. But ultimately, I come down to this. How long can you hide your QB? I mean, I understand that you play well at home, and your formula is you trust in your defense that they could keep you in some games and be competitive, and you have a lot of confidence in Howard and Cohen, in particular that offensive line in the running game, where you feel like if you take care of the football and you don't take a lot of risk, that you have a feeling you could be in a lot of games. But ultimately, this is the modern day NFL. You can't play this style of 70s football consistently, John Fox, and expect to be successful. And if you have to go so far out of your way with a quarterback who cannot move, who cannot stretch the field with his arm consistently, who clearly at times cannot see what the hell he's doing, and cannot take care of the football, why in the bluest of blue fucks is Mitchell Trubisky not in there as your starting quarterback right now? I don't give a crap about stubbornly digging in your heels and thinking the rookie needs development. The bottom line is the best way anybody's going to learn in any place in the world after a certain period of classroom training is you've got to get out there on the field and you've got to apply your craft and you've got to go do it. The whole thing of sitting and continuing to learn behind somebody like Mike Glennon. What the hell is Trubisky going to learn behind Giraffe Neck Glennon? What happens in the NFL when you start a guy that's 6'7", that can't move, that doesn't have the arm to stretch the field, has a slow release, can't see defenses in any type of complex coverage, and doesn't take care of the football? Is that the type of crap that you want Trubisky to see? The bottom line is this Bears team could be a little bit more relevant and a little bit more competitive than a lot of people could give them credit for, but they won't be as long as this team continues to insist on stubbornly digging in their heels because John Fox is a clown, insisting that Mike Glennon is the best option for them. Clearly, anybody with eyes can see at this point in time that you are coaching in a way that is not just conservative, that is not just managing a game. You are coaching scared. You are coaching as you are afraid of your starting quarterback. And if you are afraid of your starting quarterback, then it is about time that you start a new one. And the quicker you get Trubisky in, the better off this team is going to be, both in the short term and the long term. And at this point in time, I honestly don't know who the hell else doesn't see this except John Fox. And you're going to reach a point in time where this Bears team can get better and start to become something that isn't a total joke. And the one thing holding them back is this dude that ultimately came up short in 2 other places. How much longer are you going to stick with John Fox? So the ultimate question for John Fox, is it more important to be right or do the right thing by your football team in your locker room? Maybe you feel Mike Glennon is a good leader. Maybe you feel like he's a good teammate. Maybe you feel like he conducts himself like a professional. That's all fine and good. Those are admirable traits for a backup quarterback. Ultimately, you need a quarterback that can make plays. Trubisky has a better, more lively arm, and most certainly can move his feet a hell of a lot better and bring a different element to your offense. And if you're afraid of putting him in there because he really doesn't have much to work with in terms of offensive skill talent at the wide receiver position, then why the fuck did you draft the kid to begin with at number 2? And that message goes to Ryan Pace. Ultimately, this comes to a point in time where there has to be a sanity check. Continue to hide your quarterback, or give the young kid a chance and see what the hell you have. Because you know right now that you can play it close to the vest and hang around, but more often than not, you're playing afraid, you're playing not to lose instead of playing to win. And that is not a formula for success in today's NFL. The Bears just got lucky on Sunday that it was good enough.